So in this video, we're talking about why it costs more to be poor. And I'm going to highlight 6 examples of how some things can be stacked against people in lower income brackets or people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I don't want to get political in this video, okay? So we're going to kind of shy away from proposing solutions and more so just highlighting some of the issues and some things that I've noted over the past 5 years of how things can be really stacked against certain people. So let's talk about it here in today's video. And the first one is food, which is one of the largest expenses in any household. Now, food in this specific category, let me just show you a chart here showing you the difference between small stores versus large stores and how this can negatively affect people in lower income brackets. So you can see the difference between these two. What happens is that there's something known as a food desert, and food deserts can be inner cities, it could be in very rural areas, but these food deserts tend to be where a lot of people in poverty or in low income brackets tend to live. And so a lot of these big stores like Costco or Walmart or Trader Joe's, they tend to avoid these areas for a variety of reasons. But the issue here is that when they avoid those areas, it ends up being something known as a food desert, where the only food options for groceries are gas stations, convenience stores, like pharmacies like CVS's, or things like Dollar General. And the problem here is that the prices in those smaller stores end up being a lot more than something like Costco or Sam's Club or these bigger stores. So you can see the price differences here. Now, this is from 2014, so some of these prices are a little bit off, but the differences in prices are probably very similar today. And so looking at some of these over 50% savings by going to one of these big stores rather than a small one. And another issue here is that a lot of people who are living paycheck to paycheck or don't have very much money, maybe they don't have a car, and so they can't afford to go drive to these various different locations to get the best prices on their groceries. And it's also very difficult to like lug groceries around on the public transportation, on a bus, or walking to the store if they have to. And so what ends up happening is that people in lower income brackets end up paying more for food, or they end up getting fast food, which is also why I believe there is some correlations between poverty and obesity and other things as well, because you end up having to go with whatever's nearby because you can't afford to get those other things. So that's something I think is very, very sad. I don't know what the solution to that is. I just wanted to highlight it there. But let's talk about how some other things are stacked against people in lower income brackets. Specifically here, we're talking about banking, okay? Banking is crazy. So banks in the United States made over $15 billion in overdraft fees in 2019. I think in 2021, 2022, they made about $10 billion each year from overdraft fees. And what this is anytime that your bank account goes below $0, maybe you use your debit card to buy some gas or buy some food, and if it goes below $0, they will charge you this overdraft fee. Sometimes it's around $35, give or take, depending on the bank. And this affects people who are obviously very much living paycheck to paycheck. And so they are footing the bill for all these different things. And it can get really expensive. Now, some people might say, well, why don't you just not overdraw on your account? And in a lot of cases, people who say that probably have never experienced poverty. So yeah, this is something that's pretty crazy to see, that banks are making so much money from overdraft fees, $15 billion in 2019. That is a lot. And then also, let's say that, maybe you have a few $100s, you go to your local bank and you say, hey, I want to put this into a bank account, I want to open an account. They're going to charge you sometimes $10 or $20 per month because the bank looks at it and says, we can't really make a lot of money off of you, so we're going to charge you to have a bank account here. And that's what happens at a lot of big banks all around the country. Now, sure, there are ones that don't have fees for account minimums, but a lot of them still do have those account minimum fees, and that can really add up a lot for people who are generally not making very much money. And then the third thing that I think is really kind of disgusting is payday loans. So payday loans, these are extremely predatory loans that go after people who are in those lower income brackets, where they say, okay, maybe you're struggling to pay your bills. We will front you some money. We'll get you paid a couple of days early. But the problem here is that this is a very, very bad cycle. In a lot of cases, the people who end up doing payday loans, who end up using them, are ones that couldn't even get a credit card. And so they get a payday loan, and the APR on that can be sometimes 3, 4, 500%, and it ends up in this really bad cycle. And it's just something that really irks me when I see a lot of payday loans, and they're running ads everywhere. They're offering people money up front, and it irks me quite a bit to see things like that. Because because they're taking advantage of people who are in very tough situations. All right, now I want to briefly mention the sponsor of today's video, which is Cash App. Cash App is the easiest way to send, spend, save, and invest in Bitcoin. They have so many features on this app that allow you to invest into Bitcoin. Maybe you want to set up auto investments. You know, I can do this on a weekly basis. It's very simple to get started buying Bitcoin on Cash App. Over 10 million people have bought Bitcoin on Cash App. It's the #1 payment app in the US App Store. And I feel like there's like this big stigma around like buying Bitcoin, and the process of it feels very complicated. But when you start to use Cash App, you realize it's actually very simple on the platform. So you can see right here, I'm just going through and buying Bitcoin, and I can do this in literally like 30 seconds. And I've just bought $10 worth of Bitcoin just like that. So super easy to get set up. And then you can also do things like send Bitcoin to other people who use Cash App. Like I can send $20 worth of Bitcoin to my brother, and this process goes through very quickly and smooth. And so overall, this is an app that is really supportive of the Bitcoin ecosystem, and that's what I like about it. So if you want to start investing into Bitcoin, you can buy it with as little as $1. So I'll leave a link to them down below in the description. Thanks Cash App for sponsoring a portion of this video. I really do think that this is a really forward-looking company, and I do trust Cash App a lot. They are one of the largest publicly traded finance companies in the world. Their parent company is Block, which is a very, very large finance company. And so, yeah, I will leave a link to them down below in the description. Thanks for sponsoring this portion, and let's continue on with the video. All right, now let's talk about things like parking tickets and speeding tickets and other variety of different fines. When you look at it as a proportion of someone's income, it can really negatively affect someone who is poor much more than it would someone who is wealthy. So let's say that you get a $100 parking ticket for, you park in the wrong area. It happens, right? Maybe you didn't see a sign, whatever. Now, if you're making $400 a week, there goes 25% of your income that week that goes towards that parking ticket, versus if you're making $4,000 a week, that's 2.5% of your income. You probably don't even notice a parking ticket, and you just pay it off and do whatever, and you don't really care. And so seeing it that way, if you look as a proportion of income, it can be really difficult for people who are not making very much money or who are living paycheck to paycheck. And that kind of leads me into one of the final points here that I wanted to share with you, which is regressive taxes. And as I said earlier, I don't want to get political here, but it's good to know that there are some taxes that have regressive sort of features to them. So look at something like the soda tax in the city of Philadelphia. I wrote a lot of papers on this back in 2016 when I was in college. But basically, the city of Philadelphia instituted a 1.5 cent tax per ounce on any type of sugary drink, soft drink, diet soda, like most different types of drinks inside the city, 1.5 cents per ounce of those drinks. Now, if you're buying like a 64-ounce bottle of soda, that's going to be about $1 extra you're paying for that. Now, this is a regressive tax. And I'm not a big fan of taxes in general, okay? And cities, governments, they love taxing anything they can get their hands on. It's kind of annoying, but anyway. So this regressive tax, does it actually stop people from buying soda? No, not really. But what it does is it pulls a lot of money out of people's pockets. Generally, people who maybe live in the city, especially in Philadelphia, which is a city that has a really high poverty rate. So they're basically paying all this extra tax, and as a proportion of their income, it's quite a bit. So regressive taxes, this is something that I think is good to be aware of them. And I want to share something else with you, which is that credit cards and credit card processing fees generally are bad for people in lower income brackets. I want to explain why. So I was reading an article on Vox about this, which we obviously know Vox is kind of a garbage news network, but they quoted a pretty reliable source here, which was the Boston Fed, the Federal Reserve in Boston, okay? And so what the Boston Fed found is that people who are high income consumers pay an average of $13 less per month through retail prices, and people in those lower income brackets pay about 60 cents more, all due to slight fees on merchants. So let me explain how this works. So credit cards are like this secret tax that people don't even realize that they're paying, okay? And so what happens here is that a lot of people who are poor or who are living paycheck to paycheck, a lot of them are using cash or they're using debit cards, and then wealthier people, middle, upper class, anyone in that category tends to use credit cards and the points and all that, right? And so when you go to the store, let's say you go to a grocery store, you spend $100. You can either, pay them with cash and give them a $100 bill, or you can tap your debit card, tap your credit card, right? You can do that. Now, to you, it doesn't feel any different, so a lot of people just end up doing the card because you don't have to deal with coins and cash and everything else. But to the merchant, to the grocery store, they're actually paying anywhere between 1.5 and 3.5% for processing fees. Basically, to get that money from your card into the grocery store's bank account, they have to pay fees all along the way, and this can be a few percent. So to the consumer, you don't really feel like you're spending any extra money, but it's like this silent tax that's involved that a lot of people don't realize. Now, to people who have credit card points and they get cash back, well, you don't really feel the effect because, you're getting like 2% cash back, or you're getting some points, you're getting some miles. But if you're paying cash, you're secretly footing this bill for the people who are kind of playing the credit card's points game. And the way that you're doing this is because the merchant, the grocery store, well, they're paying that 3% fee for interchange fees, card processing to Visa, MasterCard, banks, everything else, and they're not going to just eat that cost. They're going to pass that cost on to the consumer, so they end up raising their prices in a lot of cases by a few percent to make up for that fee. And so I don't want to say that like doing the credit cards point game is bad, because I have credit cards. I like, getting free hotels. I like getting free flights and everything else. But you can see how this can affect people who are basically footing the bill for that. So just another thing to be aware of there. And I'm not really sure what the solution is there. And so in a sense, it's almost like this transfer of wealth from lower income people to higher income people. And we're talking tens of billions of dollars through credit card points in this manner, which is really, really interesting. And I'm not really sure thoughts on that, exactly what to think, and like what to tell people specifically on that, because I think I'm going to use a credit card because I'm going to get 2% cash back. But it's just something that I think a lot of people have not really thought about as well on that point there. So those are some of the reasons why things can be stacked against people who are in those lower income brackets. Let me know your thoughts down below on, maybe potential issues, other issues that maybe I haven't highlighted, and then also what we could do about some of these as well. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you found some value in it. Thanks Cash App for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter, shoot me a DM. Always happy to answer those. So thanks for watching, and I'll see everybody sometime in the future.